Awesome to welcome David Herbert, head coach of the women's program at the Basketball Australia Center of Excellence, to the Basketball Podcast. David has over 25 years of experience within the Basketball Australia pathways, having coached in the NBL 1, WNBL, National Junior Championships, and as a national team head coach. David has received numerous coaching accolades, including WNBL Coach of the Year Victoria in Queensland, and the SEABL Coach of the Year. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on, Chris.
Excited to talk to you, and had a chance to visit not that long ago now and see the Center of Excellence and get a chance to connect with you and the other coaches. So maybe let's start. Can you give us an idea of what happens on a daily basis for you as the coach?
Yeah, well, at the COE, we have a full-time environment for I guess from 16 to 18 years of age, athletes, supposedly the best athletes in the country. I have a lot to do with selecting those athletes. So we try to do our best in terms of finding the right ones and who have the right attitude and bring the right cultural aspects to the COE. I guess on a daily basis, it's a full-time training environment. So we provide a daily training environment of excellence if we can. And we strive for that each and every day. It has its challenges, that's for sure. Obviously, they're young players from 16 upward, so there are those challenges each day. But usually, it's an early morning wake up. I'm on the court usually before they go to school, so at say 7 a.m. till in around the 8:30 mark, and the kids then fit in recovery for about 15 minutes. And then jump on a bus and head to school. So they are up early. Usually we have an arrangement with Lake Ginninderra College here in Canberra. They'll go to school when their classes are assigned. So between, say, 9:30 and 1 o'clock, we won't see them. They'll come back. I'll often have either an individual with a player. We'll be doing a video review along those lines. They'll go to gym at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then we may finish off with some more individuals or possibly even some scouting or a scripting session where we're working on our team actions, and that's usually a full-on day. We have off legs days. I've had to get used to that as a coach. I don't think I've ever done that in my life, but really the duty of care around the kids here is amazing. I have 8 staff. I have psychologist, nutritionist, biomechanist, skill acquisition person, assistant coach, doctor. We meet twice a week, and all we do is talk about the kids, and we're trying to integrate everything. So I teach closeouts and shooting technique, and I'll have my strength and conditioning coach go through those techniques with me, and we'll work on things in the gym, tests that we want to run, such as a Monday morning where they come in to do a jump test. They work on the balance of both sides of their body. So if there's any red flags, then we obviously change the program for that kid for the week. But it's pretty extensive. Like it is a full-time environment, and I guess I'm in the role for 6 months now, and I'm getting used to the load management side of things, getting a lot better at that, and I guess training smarter, not harder, in some instances. So. Yeah, I guess that's a bit of an overview.
It sounds amazing, and it sounds ideal in a lot of ways for a lot of us as coaches who love this stuff, and especially with the integration of all the different sports sciences into it. And you mentioned this being obviously full-time training environment. So initially, my one thought might be one of the challenges is that you're not always building towards a game. That's one of the challenges, to be able to keep practice focus, practice motivation for players. So talk about some of the ways that you work around that, because on a weekly basis, you're not always preparing for a game, are you?
Yeah, I guess one of the real key things that it's about our national teams overall. We're heavily focused on the Opals on the women's side, and obviously for the men here, it's the Boomers. The real key thing is keeping that. Keeping the kids aware of that. I'll mention the other day we actually play in the NBL 1 East, which is a tier under the Women's National Basketball League. We play throughout New South Wales, We played pretty poorly, but still won convincingly. So we're in a learning phase at the moment on just what we want our identity as a defensive team and things like that. So we do have some games, but realistically, we're aiming for national teams. We're aiming for the Sapphires, the Gems, the Opals. And one of the things the other day was we played poorly. I showed them the video review. I walked them down while we're doing the video review to the other end of the building where the Opals tradition and the mottos of Australian players are great defenders. Australian players play with relentless persistence. They're assertive. They're we players. I guess they're hanging in the gym here, and they're things that we try to look at on a daily basis to go, hey, our daily training environment has to have relentless persistence. It has to be, we have to be achieving those goals. And that in mind, and also just various things that happen at the COE. Like we have the Australian Opals team coming in a week's time. They have a camp here, and we've created what we call the COE Opals experience. So we're going to shadow the Opals while they're training. Some of the kids, if the Opals are injured, they're going to be included, and they'll be mentored by the Opals. So the program overall for Australia, we try and make these kids understand what it takes to be an international player for Australia.
It's truly a model for basically every country to follow. And has it surprised you, and maybe you've had these discussions there, how few countries have adopted this type of model?
Yeah, I know Paris early on adopted it, but yeah, I think it's Peter Lonigan often said it's the best kept secret in Australia. We're trying to change that. Obviously, we're trying to put some more Twitter, some drills up, use Twitter, use social media.
I've noticed. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, we had I think like 60,000 views on one drill and things like that, and we've got to expand that. Where we've actually got someone coming on in social media or social media here, which is great, and they'll look after a lot of that for us because the thing we need to get our message out, what we're trying to achieve here, and Peter Lonigan does an amazing job. He's in Perth right now. He's in Tasmania last week, New South Wales the week before.
Never stops.
And as coaches, we try to get out with him as much as we can and spread the word. And it certainly, I've been in this system for nearly 25, 30 years now. And I think it's a good system. There's obviously, it ebbs and flows a little, just in terms of game style and moving from fundamentals to small-sided games to a mixture of the two and those things. But I think Australia gets it pretty right. And we go to Worlds and we write down observations at Asia Cup, and we try to take in all those learnings and then incorporate that. And we're trying to do a better job of sharing that message throughout our country right here. And I think we're doing a good job considering we are under-resourced and there's minimal people involved in it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you guys do a great job, and it's just a curiosity that few countries have adopted this model in terms of that. But also, what I love about it, about your background in particular, is that Basketball Australia has developed a coach within their system and then rewarded them with one of the marquee positions, and something that you've earned through all the different steps that you've gone through, and yourself and Robbie McKinley on the boys side. I mean, it's great to see coaches go through a pathway and then be rewarded with something that they've earned.
Yeah, I guess 25, 30 years ago, I was a volunteer. I come from a little country town called Morwell, and not many people in the USA, let alone Australia, know where that is. And it's heartland of basketball, I think, in Victoria and country Victoria. And I grew up coaching in the under-14 academy. I think the coach there, Jack Thomas, who was in charge of the program at the time, said, hey, you're running this now. And I'm 18, 19. And that's when my journey began. I was involved with the Jamboree. I went through as a state coach, moved from a state coach into a high performance coaching role in Queensland. I moved to Queensland, then commenced in the WNBL, and at age 26, I started coaching in the WNBL, which I'll say I was too young. But the experiences out of that have led me, and it's taken me 25 years to coach an Australian team. but I'm thoroughly loving the experience here, and with the Gems, it's been a dream come true for me.
No, it sounds like it. And, we're going to dive around a little bit on some different topics and some of the things that I've learned from you through some of your clinics and some of our interactions and different things. But I want to start with shooting. And, you have a great clinic online. Uh, it's never one size fits all, as everyone is different. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we when I got here, I said to Peter, at the World Cup, the past two World Cups, we've come second to the USA. And I'm not saying we can change that. There's a lot of other countries like France and Spain and those countries that are getting better all the time. But the observation there was I just watched the warm up and I looked down at the USA. Every shot technique, the ball rotation was amazing. Every player seemed to be able to shoot the ball, whether it was from a 3-point line or from the keyway. And I said to Peter right there, we've got some things to do here. Like if you look at the way the Australian kids shot the ball at the other end, the flight of the ball wasn't right. They're hitting different sides of the ring. There was no consistency with it. So we decided to commence a model here and look at each individual and keep it individually focused. And that saying of one size it fits all, it doesn't. We players have different. I've got a young girl here who's 6'8", Sarah Portlock. I've got a point guard here who's sort of around the 5'8" mark. They're going to shoot it differently. There's no question about that. And there were some things that were common, we felt. So we called it building the house. And they were creating straight lines to shoot the ball initially. So we wanted to create a base initially where feet were straight, shoulders were straight, the fingers were straight, the index finger through the line of vision. But then we wanted to add the curtains. So build the house, add the curtains. So then that delves into all the different finishing, like the 1 foot shooting that Jared Hillier and Wyndham's very big on. We incorporate a little bit of that. I refuse to do it behind the 3-point line, Jared. I'll make that comment now. But we're incorporating that into a lot of like the Dirk Nowitzki little step backs and finishes around the rim off 1 foot. I think you've got to have the base though. If you don't have the base, you're in for a world of hurt, and a real focus on the ball rotation. So I'm lucky enough to have spent some time on Zoom with David Love, and he's given me some really key drills on how to get the kids spinning the ball well, or one finger on the ball, and basically getting the rotation that you need. Similarly, different techniques on correcting form, and from there, the kinetic flow. I have to say, like if the kids don't flow and the shot's broken, there's issues. And we had numerous kids here at the COE, and it wasn't really hard. It was a focus for me, so I made it my focus to try and work with each person, provide an individual program, and go about change. And we videoed each player, front, side, back, side, and put an overlay. I used an app called iAnalyze that I found on the internet. It was like an AI thing that showed exactly the movement, and we evolved programs for each player from there. And the success across 13 athletes, 12 of them outstanding. There's a work in progress with one, but that's always a coach's challenge. I think you find something that you can't quite get your head around, and that's where I've incorporated David Love and our skill acquisition coach to really help us with it.
I love it. And building a house, what a great analogy to talk about shooting commonalities. And then obviously you accounted for adaptability within players as well, which is great. So I'm curious with that, with the level of players you're dealing with, are you generally dealing with small changes or big changes? Are you completely changing some shots, or are you mainly working within what they brought to you?
I guess the first thing is for the player to shoot it and to actually watch the flight of the ball. Once we've seen the flight of the ball, now we can start to ask the questions that are necessary. So why did it hit the left side of the ring? Why can I see the logos when the ball's rotating? And from there, it's I guess straightening them out. And I'll give you an example. Isla Jufferman's in our program. She has been the MVP at the Asia Cup twice in 1 year for 17s or 16s and 18s, and I had a fantastic World Cup. She's a phenomenal player, but the twist in her shot, it was basically finding ways for her to incorporate her legs. She's so powerful in her upper body, but her arms were basically, or shoulders were doing all the work. So the kinetic flow she lost within her shot. So she would actually lift, lean back, lose the power from her legs, glutes, and hips. So then it became an upper body shot. And we went about basically changing that and teaching her how to load the ball, teaching her about kinetic flow. And I actually had the girls dancing down the court. We were going down the court, flowing and dancing, and I had it to music. Then I got them to sing, and they didn't like that very much. So I asked them to perfect it so they didn't have to do it again. But that kinetic flow and the understanding of the body, how to incorporate the power from legs, so you can basically shoot it with soft hands, was vital to everyone. So there were two players with hitches in their shot, so they'd lift, they'd come down, and reshoot it. And again, a negative energy going that way results in no power from underneath their body. So we worked at the flow of that, and it was kind of like breaking each one down. I wouldn't say the kids were reasonably good, wasn't wholesale change, but we refined it definitely we're getting results now. Like we run a drill called Richmond drill, which is, I guess, an Australian one. You shoot mid-range, make 2 in a row, you move back to the 3. If you miss 2 at the 3-point line, you got to go back to mid-range. And that drill, we started with kids that were scoring under 100. We're now hitting the 145s, 150, which are elite scores for that drill. Our opals are in that range. So there definitely has been some progress, and it's interesting. We changed our focus at the start of this year, and we lost a little bit of those results. So we're now incorporating 30 minutes before each team training specifically on that again.
Very interesting to hear. And you mentioned kinetic flow. For coaches interested in more, you can Google that. Summation of joint forces, kinetic chain, all these concepts of basically a shot should feel effortless and not effortful. Yeah. And that's what I come back to. The way I was taught shooting, it was like very effortful. Oh, you have to do this, this, and this. And it didn't account for how it actually feels within my body. And that's essentially what you're talking about.
Yeah, you get a kid to jump and flow. Next thing, you put a ball in the hand and get them to do the same thing. It's like, oh wow, it's kind of like a light bulb moment. And just seeing our 6'8" kid, Sarah Portlock, who had no kinetic flow or chain, she's now shooting the 3. I've got her to shoot 1 in a game so far, but at 6'8", she's starting to win some of our 3-point shooting competitions. So that's an ominous thought for the rest of the world if we can start doing that with our kids. So
that's great. Look out, world, for sure. And I had kinetic flow written down from your clinic, and then 2 other words or phrases I want to talk about. What you see is what you shoot to, and then active receiver. So both of those. Can you talk first, maybe what you see is what you shoot?
Yeah, so I guess line of vision. So that's one of my shooting lines. So feet, shoulders, hands, like a shooting line across thumb and pinky. We say we want to finish like this, and then we add the curtains where we finish with our 3 fingers. But the girls walk around going "Shaka life." It's an Australian thing. So, but the shooting line. So if I see what I shoot to, I'm through my line of vision. I want to see it. Sarah Blixabs in the Opals started doing some work with her 6 years ago. She bought, if you can see this she bought the ball back here and was releasing it. Within 5 minutes of working with her, I basically stopped her and said, what the hell are you doing, Sarah? And from there, we shifted it to in front of her face. And now when she's on, she's an elite shooter. I'm not saying that's from me. She did all the hard work. But to see her go out and have 40-point game in the WNBL was amazing. The problem was the next night she had a game of 0, and she'll hate me for commenting on that here on the podcast. But she's a special young lady, and it was amazing to see someone make change in 5 minutes. And normally people aren't willing to change. She was sort of 23, 24, 25 when I met her. And she changed in 5 minutes. So I have no hesitation in actually telling someone to actually make sure the form's right. You never lose your eye. You never lose that ability. So shooting through that line of vision, seeing what you're doing, you never lose that. You never lose the eye to do it. And once small changes don't make a huge difference to that.
So
and the other,
go
yeah.
ahead. I was just going to ask you quickly, like, so saying that, like, do you think that we too often avoid doing some of these changes on shots because we're worried about how long it'll take? Because sometimes, as I've experienced that you said too, it doesn't take as long as you think sometimes.
Nah, if a young player wants to invest, or even an older player, I've changed a shot with a girl who's 28 in the WNBL, and I think if they're willing to invest and take time, I think they can do it easily. And I always use this analogy. And I don't even know where I was told this, but I was told you've got to take 10,000 shots the correct way, so with the adjustment, to actually have it muscle memory, or have the ability to remember it. Your muscles remember it and be able to shoot that way. So when I tell a young kid that, they start thinking, "Gee, that's a lot of shots." But I don't know that anyone's ever counted it that I've worked with, but I think it's easy if the player wants to do it. If they want to change, they'll change.
Yeah, it gives them perspective on how much work they have to put in and generally lead themselves to be able to do that. So, and that's a beautiful thing about your environment. They do have those opportunities to be able to do those reps. The other thing is active receiver. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, like an Isla Jufferman's, she will move her hands to the ball, so she'll reach across rather than move her feet. And one of the things, whether you're coming off a screen, whether you're coming off basically coming off a cut, if you don't have active feet and you don't catch the ball in the air, you're not going to have the rhythm and kinetic flow to be able to shoot the ball. There's examples, say if you're in the corner with a three, it's less active, where you might pop and use 2 feet. But generally, if you aren't active in chasing the ball, then your feet will follow your hands. So you've got to do that all the time. You've got to be in a situation where your feet are active and moving. I think it's definitely something when you look at in basketball in Australia with the younger kids right now. The active feet involves catching and ripping and driving all the time. I think in some respects we've lost that ability to catch and shoot. And I think we need to go back to the Peter Lonigan saying, "Can I shoot? Can I score? Can I create?" And if kids are catching with that mentality, the game becomes tougher. I went to a lot of tournaments earlier in the year in Australia, and a lot of kids, it was drive footwork, not shot footwork. The feet were active, but I think we need to go back to actually looking to catch and shoot first, and then challenge the game from there.
It's a fascinating observation, and I have no doubt about that. And certainly people through March Madness are talking about the lack of shooting and different things like that. And that could be a great observation to be able to apply this concept of saying, yeah, we're so emphasizing attacking closeouts that we're not emphasizing shooting footwork first and that shoot first mentality.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to create that here with the kids. And to see young Jessica Petrie from Queensland, she's going to Nebraska next year. Nebraska have got a ripper. The mentality of her was she didn't shoot the ball that well at the start of the tournament, but I can tell you right now, every shot that was open, she kept firing. And I think the semi-final, she had the first 16 points of the game, and it was beyond the arc, and it was impressive. So I hope to see some further results and if we can manage to get to that final again with the USA, who knows? We, as the Gems and coaching the Gems, hopefully we've impacted these kids enough within an 8-9 month period to really take another step and challenge the world with our shooting.
This is not meant in the judgment of Nebraska. I don't know what they'll do with her, but the danger is that she goes somewhere, or some of your players go somewhere where they don't have permission and freedom to shoot when they're open. And that
Yeah.
affects shooting, doesn't it? And that's such a concept that I think coaches really can just improve shooting quite a bit by just giving more permission and freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think you get into a game, you want to shoot that three early. You want to kick the ball ahead. You want to be aggressive on the rim and have the kids freedom. And like for me, the young Sarah Portlock, the kid 6'8", I'm yelling at her from the sideline because she's trailing and they're not defending her. And I'm saying the only way she'll improve is to take that shot. The only way kids learn the game of basketball is to take that shot. And sometimes it's about taking a risk. But here, when we play a game, it's not about winning. It's honestly about developing a system, developing each individual, so that when they leave here, they're competent at shooting the three, shooting the mid range, attacking the rim with various finishes. And I think when coaches hold people back and say don't shoot, the effect that has on players is dramatic. I know of one in the WNBL right now. I think she can shoot the three really well. Unfortunately, the coach doesn't allow her to do it, and I have to turn the game off half the time. It frustrates me. So
I've been there. And another phrase that I love, shifting gears a little bit into some of your team defensive philosophy, one of the phrasings I love, which I agree with completely, is teach situational rather than actual. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, well, in Australia, we went through an era of denial defense and pressure defense, and that's what the Opals were renowned for with Tom Maher, probably the best women's coach Australia's ever had. We were known for gritty, tough defense, and that was a system. We then shifted to more of a pack line, a containment system. And you hear coaches now say, we're teaching pack, we're teaching pressure. And to me, what's the main danger on the floor with their offense? What's the main danger individually? Who's the biggest threat? How's a team scoring? So teach players situations. I had an interesting one at the Country Cup this year in Albury. We're watching a young player from the COE, and the coach is yelling because she's helping from the strong side corner. And I have that rule. It's something that but this kid 3 times in a row left the strong side corner to go and help. And the coach ripped into her. The coach takes her out of after the game. Why did you do that? And I was in earshot of it. She said, because my player can't score. They can't shoot. So biggest threat was the player driving at the rim. So that's one scenario. So I think that's pretty smart for a kid to do that. And it's kind of
sometimes they're smarter than we are, aren't they?
Absolutely. And I encourage them to defend the strong side corner. Obviously, we might have a rule where we help off a player. So we try to make that situation as well. But you think in the post, you might have a coach saying always 3/4 front, or always half front, or always play behind within your system. You're not actually teaching the player a range of skills on defense. You're not actually teaching the scenario. So if a player doesn't have a post move, they can't put it on the floor. Play behind. If they're a Lauren Jackson, play in front, 3/4 front. Don't let them catch the ball. Make it a lob, or change the strategy. If you have one set style, you're not teaching that kid a range of skills. Even on a closeout, are they a shooter? Are they a driver? Where do my hands need to be to take away the biggest threat right now? Do they need to be smothering the ball for the drive? Do they need to take away the shot? I think situational as well. And you do that off on balls. You might have a player who's great off the bounce and looks to turn the corner. Do we double that player and everyone else on the floor? Do we maybe go under the screen and see if they can shoot it? And I think rather than teach a specific system, we need to teach a range of skills and talk about like denial, defense, and pack line. With what I'm doing here, we teach both. So I call it on and off. On means deny, off means pack in and help, and we'll change that mid possession, just to get them used to the idea of, okay, you've got to deny, you've got to force the offense out. We might have one specific player who is very talented that we might say, okay, we're denying that player. We're on, and 4 off. And I think doing that is allowing these players to develop a range of skills, not just a system of defense.
Well, it strikes me the adaptability that you're building, that they can go into any system in the world and be able to play because they've been exposed to different types of concepts, and they're not married to one system.
Yeah, and I was brought up, nah, this is the way, and it was all the denial stuff that we were taught, and it was good. Australian became pretty gritty, and on the international scene that helped. But now I think players are better, smarter. Some of the offensive weapons that are out there in the world are tremendous. So you have to have a range of strategies. You can't really go in with one, and it's the situation that you want to defend, not actually a system. So,
well, we talk about conceptual offense, so conceptual defense makes sense too. We want players to be able to solve problems. So I love this, and this goes into another topic that I know you're evolving with in terms of your philosophy, and that's transition offense. So can you talk a little bit about how that's changing over the years?
Yeah, I think, again, you look at structures. We had a screen-the-screener structure in Australia. It was the 5-man rim run. Basically, you had to wait for them to get there. The 4-man trailing, you had to slow down to make sure they were there. To me, I enjoyed the transition to the flow offense that Australia ran. We sort of flowed in a little bit more. I hope I've evolved that. I may have taken it backward, not sure. But where we run a 4-on-1, so 4 perimeter players, one point guard, and those 4, and then a post player running the middle. And that post player determines where we commence. So if they're already deep, we'll run a low series. If they get to the foul line, we'll run a high series. If they're delayed and behind the ball, we'll run a delay series. So everything basically flows into each other. So you'll get your handoff to one ball in the delay series. You'll get a punch screen and a screen-the-screener action that flows. In the high set, you might run some gets or some punch screens or some drag screens, and basically trying to make it all flow and determined on creating a lot of space for our post to run and for our point guard to play. So, and then basically the other 3 are getting ready to shoot the ball whenever they're open, kick your heads and get on the rim, feed the post with receivers. And one of the big things that I like with the 3 people running is the point guard. If they can't kick ahead in the backcourt, they're going to misdirect the ball across the street, as some people call it in Australia, and get to the other side and change the shape of the defense. When you incorporate all of that with a running post that flows, I'm trying to develop this all the time right now, and I rarely run any actual half court sets. So it all sort of offense flows in motion. So I think Peter Lonigan came up with flotion. He thought it was just a mixture of flow and motion. So I thought that sounded pretty good.
I love it. And so the trigger essentially is where the post is in relation to the ball, and then the ball in relation to the post.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And again, like if they're delayed, we're running with some screening action, or we're reversing it and coming back, getting a handoff or something along those lines. And I love it. I think the kids, they've enjoyed it too. It just gives them the ability to play faster. And what I would encourage is they play fast. I want them to play even faster than that. So what we're doing is being attacking on the rim all the time and trying to create the split kick extra, the read and react type scenarios that we get.
And that structure gives them the opportunity to be more creative too, I imagine, because they can play multiple positions. It doesn't matter their spots as much, right? Because they can be very adaptable relative to this. Yeah,
that's right. And if we don't have a post player, we would basically just run delay actions all the time and play 5 out. So you can basically, if I have 2 post players on the floor, I just take one off the perimeter and they become first one down the floor is basically dictating what we do. second player down the floor can move into more of a trail position or delay position. So it's very interactive, and I want to work at this a lot more, and I hope it gives us some fast, quick options when we hit the World Cup stage.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch, and fun to watch these players over the years evolve and develop as well through this. So wonderful, and you have so many great phrases. So I'm going to throw some more of your phrases at you that I've taken from different things, and I'm sure you've adapted or adopted from different people over the years. The one that I want you to talk about a little bit is this concept of a rebound king, and I'm not sure if you still use it or not, but I love the concept.
Yeah, Billy Tomlinson. The Basketball Australia implemented mentors. So I was doing a camp, Gems camp, and I had Billy Tomlinson sitting there, basically critiquing me. He's one of the master coaches in Australia. He coaches in China, has been a fantastic coach for a long time. So the opportunity to have a mentor, some people frown it. I loved it. I encourage people to come and say, hey, I think you should try it this way. Because I think as a coach, you have to evolve and adapt all the time and go with learn what's happening in the world and try and I'll go back to the rebound king, but that's what Jared does in Wyndham. It's like he knew ideas and things like that. And I look at some of his videos all the time. Like, hey, I can adapt that into what I'm doing. And I think if you get set in your ways, you become stale and old. And I'm getting old. I don't want to become stale. So rebound king is something that we have an assistant coach who is absolutely dedicated to being a person who is the rebound king. So they will basically be in a situation that they're focusing on blockouts, they're focusing on offensive rebounding position, and they're getting after it. We want them, because rebounding is such a weak area in the game. You've got to form those habits. So to have a specific person dedicated to that at training, and we use that at the Gems camp, it had really terrific results. So obviously your offensive rebound flows into defensive transition. So they take a little bit of responsibility for that. So I go with a traditional scheme. There's some I've done some what do you call it, it's tagging up, Aaron Fern tagging up, but I've stayed with traditional scheme of rebound triangle, long rebound safety, and the rebound king's responsible. So I'll hand them to put together some drills specifically for that and lead that, and that gets them more engaged at our trainings and things like that. But that concept really worked for me, and that was from Billy Tomlinson as a mentor. And I encourage people, if you know a coach who well respected, has the knowledge, get them to watch you run a training session, because it'll help evolve you as a coach and a person.
Absolutely, it's a great thing to have peer evaluation and those different things that come from it. And then the other part of this rebound king concept is obviously it speaks to you defining roles for your coaching staff, because one of the challenges is that we all want to watch the ball, right? Like just, if nobody's telling you otherwise, you're probably watching the ball. So getting people to focus on different things is important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have a training session written up, particularly when you have a national camp or with the Gems where you've got multiple assistants. We'll define in each drill, okay, you're concentrating on these particular points. We want you basically using these key words or cue words that are repeated, and we don't want you stopping the drill. We want you taking people out to the side, explaining what's going on, get them back in the drill. So kids want to train. They don't want to listen to me. They don't want to listen to the other coaches. And I think the more you can coach on the run and keep the session moving with those assistant coaches interacting, the better result you're going to have overall.
Couldn't agree more. I know we align on that one, to have them develop at basketball by playing basketball. And the other part of this is that it gives you the chance to be able to have the coach be the best version of themselves and have them feel that they're being successful and making an impact as well. So I'm curious, is there something that you go through in terms of evaluating your assistants or helping your assistants improve and grow as well?
Yeah, I would avoid doing it on the floor. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're jumping over the top of people all the time and everything like that. You've got to give them the freedom to deliver the drill. It's probably more in the evaluation stage. It's, hey, what about these points? And it's not so much telling them, you need to do this or you need to do that. It's more getting them to buy into the system. Why don't you try this, or how, and ask them questions. How did that go? What did you achieve out of that? Well, how about this as a teaching point? And just basically, we sat around in a round circle after each session at the National Performance Camp in January, where we had sort of athletes from 15 to 17 in the camp. And those round table discussions where sort of no one was more important than anyone else were really important. And we discussed teaching points. We discussed, okay, maybe you could try that. Maybe this should have happened. Maybe, and it was good. And by the end of the camp, I'd handed over different drills and more stuff. So there wasn't just my voice they were getting, because part of that National Performance Camp is coach education. And I think sometimes in Australia, our high performance coaches and coaches with the knowledge and experience, etc., they basically run the session for 2 hours and everyone stands around watching. I encourage coaches to get on the floor and go for it. And we had, I think the last session was me on, new coach, me do a drill, coach, like that. And it flowed like that. And the energy provided by those coaches was completely different to the first session, where we hadn't really met each other, so they were relying on me to deliver it. So by the end of the camp, we'd swung a 360, I think, and had everyone coaching, and everyone. It was fantastic. The atmosphere was really, really good and really positive.
I love it. And just speaks to that, if you want an engaged staff, then let them be engaged, right? To put them in situations where they have a voice and they can communicate and they can, run the drill or come up with their drill, whatever it is. All those things are so important. And when I see a staff that isn't engaged, generally, I ask the coach, I said, how much involvement does the staff have in practice? Because ultimately that's the fun part, right? Not creating the scout behind the scenes. It's actually practice, isn't it?
Yeah. And right now, my assistant coach, Sarah Graham, has the COE girls on the floor. That she's actually down there. And I thought, no, I'll change the time. I'll do. No, it's time for Sarah to step on the floor and lead this. And she's a great young coach. She's going to be terrific. But I've picked moments deliberately this year. One unavoidable with my tooth, having to have a root canal. But I've picked moments through the year where, hey, this is yours now. Because my job is to prepare more coaches to coach at the COE. My job is to encourage people to do what I did. I guess when I was a young coach, I turned up for the first clinic I went to. I stood there and basically sort of stayed back against the wall and never said anything. Next thing, another famous Australian coach, Murray Trester, said, "You've got this drill." I think every second word that came out of my mouth was okay. I was so nervous, but at that moment, it was a step in my coaching. And for coaches to come here and run a drill at an NPC camp, it's a step in their coaching. And the encouragement of getting people to do that and be interactive is so important. And my love of basketball came out of those under 14 academies where I was forced to get on the floor and lead it. And Jack Thomas was the guy. He pushed me to come out of that, get out of my comfort zone. Don't be quiet. Don't be shy. Step forward. And I haven't stopped talking since, I think. So.
Oh, we're grateful for it on the podcast. And that's beautiful. I love that whole sentiment on your part. I mean, it's development. It's not just for players, it's development for all of the people involved in your program at the COE. And that's beautiful. Another phrase that a lot of us use is kind of phrasing, what's next mentality. But what I love about what you've done with it is you connect it to the 4 cycles of basketball as you define them. So can you talk about that? Because it gives a practical application to the what's next mentality.
Yeah, I think if you draw a circle of basketball, offense or offensive transition to offense, defensive transition to defense. If you take that cycle, if one's not good, you're in trouble. Like we run Now we will do thing. Lino calls it birds in the box. So there's 4 people, 2 on offense, 3 people on defense, with an extra defender on the sideline, and they'll be around the keyway. So the 2 elbows, the 2 blocks, 3 defenders in the middle, and we're working on adaptive passing. So pivoting, making sure the defense in the middle can't get deflections. So it's 3 against 4 offense. So that's a traditional drill. Everyone probably does it. But what we've done is the coach will say go. The 4th defender comes in. Whoever has the ball has to back it out. Now we're in shell drill. Now they have to complete 5 passes as a team, 4 on 4. Then we evolve that to prior to them getting the 5 passes, the coach can yell change. So now the offense who has the ball has to put the ball on the floor. They're now in defensive transition. And so what we're trying to do is teach the transitions between the game. Another little drill that I like is similarly, we have 4 defenders, 3 offense and a coach. So it's like shell drill. They start off 4 on 4, but one of the offensive players is a coach. The only player that's allowed to shoot the ball is the coach. So we basically, the defense shifts, obviously, like shell drill. Coach shoots it. All of a sudden, now we have a 4 on 3 scenario going back, and we're trying to kick ahead. We're trying to limit to 3 passes to score. From there, we go to a situation where it's then 3 on 4 on the way back, and what we're trying to simulate is at least 3 traps. So the defense working together. But what I'm finding is more of that type of drill where you're moving between the phases of the game. You're executing half court D. You're moving to offensive transition. Then you're back on D again. The 5 on 5 to up and backs. Those scenarios are really, it teaches the game, and you can do it 2 on 2. You can do it 3 on 3, and even to the point of your small sided game, moving to the next phase of it. Who's smothering the rebound? Who's going to dog the ball? Who's getting back as safety in the 3 on 3 like that? I think the more we teach between the phases, the better outcome we get, because it just makes more sense. If you run 5 on 0 offense, you're not getting game scenario. If you do slow 5 on 5, you're actually able to teach, okay, the defense did this, so you do that, rather than A to B to C to D to E to F. Okay, now we might score. It's okay, I've passed it. What's the defense done? And so I think that evolvement for me is something that's happened in the last 5-6 years, and trying to teach those phases and teach the game a little better with defense in game like scenarios has definitely improved.
Well, 2 things stand out from what you just said. One is the players are probably more engaged too, because you're playing basketball and they're getting multiple trips of the floor, which they always love. And then the other part is obviously with that example you gave with the 4 on 4 with the coach shooting the ball, you're able to load in different challenges for them. As you said, that trapping challenge, that they've got a certain traps or they've got a certain number of passes. So you're not just doing this drill, you're also doing this drill to emphasize specific things so that they come up with specific solutions.
Yeah, that's right. And they have to read the game. And I go back to your I remember your clinic here in Canberra. You talk about letting the players explore and basically get into it straight away. 25, 30 years ago when I was at university, an AFL coach by the name of David Parkin, he said SPIR. He called it spur. This might be spire, but he called it spur. And it was show the drill, get them to perform it. Then worry about the instruction, then the reinforcement. And what you did here, it was like a flashback to, do I do that all the time? Because it's something, and I guess I questioned myself and went, okay, well, what Chris is talking about here, it's sort of similar to what David was talking about way back. And going back to that is something I guess you inspired, and it's kind of like, get these kids playing more, get them out on the floor and exploring. Don't spend too much time instructing everything. So,
well, you just described every podcast I do, which is making me self-reflect every time I hear someone like you or someone else talk. So I'm grateful I had that impact. But speaking back to that point, it's basically, again, this situation where I think my actual phrasing was it is teach the drill before the skill. Because
Yep.
often as coaches, we know all the answers and we have all the solutions, so we can speak a lot. But the point is, get them into it first, and once they've experienced it, then some of the things that we're trying to guide them towards will be more impactful because they've already done it.
Yeah, and at the Gems camp, I was doing some 5-on-0 work again, and you could see the kids are looking at the roof, the scoreboard. If they don't have the ball in their hand, it's kind of like.
You mean
And
kids
Jenny
don't like
Lonigan,
5-on-0, coach?
Jenny Lonigan, Peter's wife,
Yeah.
and she's the real boss of Australian basketball right here. She comes up and says, "Dave, that'd be better slow 5-on-5." I said, "You're right, Jenny. It's just something. Old habits die hard, and I instantly back into that. So I was grateful for Jenny coming up and saying that, and that came out of that interaction with the coaches again. They became brave enough to come up and say, "Hey, Dave, what about this?" And that was the atmosphere we were trying to create at the National Performance Camp.
Well, I love that. I love that. Obviously, what a great example. Someone who's been in coaching as long as you have, and you're always open to feedback. And that's such an important of this is humility as a coach is always a part of it. I actually did a clinic that I posted on YouTube, applying basketball immersion concepts to teaching plays 5-on-5. For those that want to understand slow learning a little bit more of what David's talking about, because I think it's absolutely underutilized. In my opinion,
Yeah.
this concept of 5-on-5, even teaching a new play, 5-on-5, slow learning, so that you connect offense and defense. And what else stands out to you when you do this slow learning type of concept?
I get this. The players understand what's the defense showing? What are they doing? What's the read? Okay. They're denying the wing, so there's a back cut opportunity. If off a screen, there's multiple reads, and the players don't learn that in a 5-on-0 situation. They'd be the greatest offensive team in the world, 5-on-0. But you immediately when you put someone in front of them, it's completely different. And that ability also in the slow on 5-on-5 situation for some mentoring to happen within our group as well, like the Isla Juffermans to mentor Sarah Portlock, 6'4", 6'8". No, do this. The defense is taking away your seal, so reseal. And it's unbelievable the effect it has across the group, rather than the 5-on-0. It's harder to coach. It is harder. You've got to think of multiple things but the way you as a coach develop is by going through that experience as well. Okay, what's the defense providing? How do I read this as a coach? And you'll develop a bit more of a philosophy around it by doing it as well.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you
one,
brought that part up about the two players, like the mentorship amongst players, because I think with our obsession with intensity in practice, we lose so many of those moments. Oh, it's got to be intense. It's got to be intense. Well, if you rank the things, I think, and I just saw some graphic that said from a deeper learning perspective, the number one thing that leads to deeper learning is teaching someone something.
Yeah,
and so your player is learning more by teaching it,
and learning off your peers as well. It's huge.
Well, it's more powerful. They don't want to learn it from us, right? They'd rather learn it from their peers, of course.
Yeah, I thought of something just before when you said about coaching and things like that. I think one of the things that I've learned about taking feedback in, I think the day I became a better coach, I don't think you can ever become a great coach in some respects, but the day I became a better coach was when I realized that I didn't know everything, and people to come up and say something, people to, okay, here's a new idea, then adapt it into your philosophy. I think I took large steps. Like as a 26-year-old coaching in the WNBL, I thought I knew absolutely everything. And I was in Townsville, and one of the things there was I stuck in my ways. I didn't have mentors and people within Townsville that I could call on, etc. And I didn't evolve in that period of time. For the 6 years I was coaching, I did not evolve as a coach, and that's on me. I thought I knew the world, and all of a sudden there's all sorts of different types of switching and things that were going on, and I wasn't a student of the game. Now I'm a student of the game every day. I think YouTube, fantastic. Your clinics, around the world, there's so many opportunities to learn, and you don't really have to travel. So
It's pretty fun, isn't it? It's pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that early on in my coaching career, my wife used to call me the uncoachable coach, right? And it's like I can totally relate to what you're saying in that way.
Yep.
And I hope young people in particular that are listening to this think about that and reflect on that, because it's exactly that. It's like, wait a minute, that caused me to self-reflect and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense that I'm not open. I should be
Yeah,
open because I'm asking my players to be open.
and that was part of the thing. I say when I was 26, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I didn't have a range of experiences. The slow 5-on-5, it was very A to B to C to D. I didn't have a range of experience to draw on from dealing with players, and in some cases, the players that were older than me. So I had a young player come out of the AIS doing a conditioning session. The first time we'd had her in Townsville, she stops the drills, hops up, goes, "Why the?" I can't say the word online, but are we doing this? And as a young coach, I was like, what do I do with this? Like I'm nearly the same age, and so now it would be get back down and finish what you started, and but not having that range of experiences, not having situations arise just in terms of team culture and chemistry. I look back and reflect. It was a great time, but it was also a time that I wasn't ready for, and I wish I'd done some things differently. Obviously, I wish I'd probably stayed as assistant longer and tried to learn and develop the game more. But I threw myself in the deep end and came out the other end. And some of the things that coaches need to understand, you can go like this, but the next day you can go like that. You're only as good as your last game. So make sure you're ready to step in. A lot of young coaches out there want to coach in the NBA or the NBL or the WNBL now. I say do your time. Find a mentor, find a program where you can evolve and develop and learn a lot about basketball before you jump in, and because often you can jump in and it's a fast way to the top and a quick way to the bottom. So.
Beautiful advice, as I said. And Coach, I can't thank you enough for sharing with us. You can see all the years that you put into coaching have benefited us as well for this hour that you've shared with us.
No, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you asking me on the podcast. You do an amazing job promoting the game, and I thank you very much.